Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to SphinxCon 2014. In 1950, a remarkable young man, Arthur L. Johnson, came to our hometown, Detroit, Michigan. He saw tremendous potential for this city and for 6 decades worked tirelessly as a civil rights leader, ardent arts advocate, and a visionary who was most passionately devoted to the Detroit community. In November of 2011, Detroiters paid their respects as Arthur was laid to rest. As we have moved forward, his legend lives on within each of us. It lives on through his wife and companion, Shekinah Johnson, who herself has been a leader in the greater Detroit community. Shekinah is here with us today, and we are honored by her presence. Arthur's contributions to Detroit, Michigan, and the nation include his work as Wayne State University's first Director of Community Relations, as President of Detroit's NAACP branch, and as a champion behind key artistic initiatives in his beloved city, including the Detroit Symphony's legendary Classical Roots series. Arthur stood for everything we hope to inspire within our young people, and his legacy of equity, equal access, the arts, and social justice lives on across the landscape of Detroit's cultural community and beyond. Shaheen is also a legend. He knows the essence behind hard work, persistence, and achievement. An oud and violin virtuoso, he is the recipient of the National Endowment for the Arts National Heritage Fellowship, the United Nations Outstanding Artistic Contributions Award, and the Library of Congress Recording of the Year. Currently, he is also on faculty at the renowned Berklee College of Music. His distinctions are countless, and his example for all of us and our young people is unmatched. SphinxCon recognizes the importance of not only paying tribute to the cornerstone of Arthur L. Johnson's legacy of social justice and the human condition, but also celebrating it through the honoring of today's heroes, including this year's honoree. This evening, Afa Dworkin, the Executive and Artistic Director of the Sphinx organization, will lead an interactive conversation with tonight's honoree, followed by Q&A. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Shaheen and Afa Dworkin.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
That was just absolutely incredible. Thank you for that beautiful musical offering. Tell us a little about the piece. How did you select it, and what was it?
Part of the process, or the improvisational process, is to make last fracture of seconds decision, not last minute even. So, as you know, I was listening to some music you were playing from a recording.
Your own CD.
Yeah, and I got inspired, so I played
Yeah, me too, but I couldn't do that.
a little opening, and then I improvised.
It was absolutely mesmerizing. The oud, what a beautiful instrument. Elegant and poetic at the same time. Talk to us a little bit how you relate to the oud on a spiritual, mental, and even physical level. How do you connect to it?
It's part of me. Once I was asked by journalists from the New York Times, how do you connect to the instrument? Both, the oud and the violin. Yeah. And I answered by saying, the oud is an extension of the right arm and the violin the left arm.
That's brilliant.
I mean, I couldn't go beyond that.
I think we could tell. So this most adorable photo of you as a young boy with your father looking over your fingerboard caringly and sort of watching over you as you play. Talk to us a little about studying with a famed artist and master himself, Hikmat Shahin. What role did your dad play in your development as a young man and as a young artist?
Yeah, growing up with him was a fantastic and very special experience. He introduced me to the jewels of music from various traditions. So I was introduced to Arabic traditional music at its best, Western classical music, and not only there, but he was very adventurous, and he introduced me to American jazz and South American. Of course, without saying, Indian music, Persian, Turkish, and East European was part of the library in our home, in our house. So he was the reason, and he cultivated my talent, if you will, on the oud, and he was great as music educator also, as a composer. So perhaps I am so much interested in music education, which is always part of my touring. It's because of him. He really installed this quality in me, and I saw what it meant to him, to preserve the folk and popular music in Palestine, reintroducing it to the schools in a way that students can relate to it and understand it. And the systems, in the way he thought and analyzed things and put it together was very rich and inspiring.
Sure. Was music part of the tradition, part of young people's development overall in the setting where you grew up, or was that unique to your family, would you say?
My father was, we come from a village in the northern Galilee, a Palestinian village called Tarshiha, and it's probably, 1,800, 2,000, out of which 1,600 perform music and practice it big time. My father was a factor in creating this environment. He was the first musician to break out of the village, and when he moved to Haifa, he established the first Arab Conservatory in 1938. And he was very interested in creating seminars and programs and creating ensembles and a music program, especially for schools, I said before. Sure. So where students can learn about music, and he composed almost 400 school songs and that touched on various topics. So that was very powerful in my view. So yeah, the village and the music scene was great, but he was, I would say, the mentor behind it.
Sure, so he was in many ways the architect behind that entire climate of embracing music and the sense of music education being important that you obviously have carried on throughout your journey.
Yes.
That's incredible. Now, your experience as being one of the first Palestinians to study at an Israeli conservatory, how do you feel that experience in and of itself shaped you? How did that influence your journey, would you say?
I started learning I always have had this dualism in my life. I picked up on the oud and the violin, and I studied on the violin the Arabic traditional music and the Western classical as well. And I have been composing in Western classical way and the Arabic tradition. So this duality played a big role in my life. So since I was a little kid, I studied the Western classical violin. I think I started at the age of 5. And I studied with Russian a violin teacher in the city of Haifa.
Uh-huh.
This is how it started. So by the age of 18, when I moved to the Academy of Music in Jerusalem, I mean, I was a violinist at that time.
Sure,
I mean,
in a Western sense.
in Western, yes. And well, of course, the
Sure,
Arabic style.
with your roots.
And at the Academy of Music, you know, I mean, it was about the environment. It was about the complete package, if you will, studying, you know, the harmony and the compositions and the ear training and solfege and all this. So this helped me very much in cultivating my musicality, if you will. And after I finished there, I came to New York to the Manhattan School of Music and then to Columbia University to continue my graduate studies.
I wanted to ask you about that. You came to the Big Apple. Why the Big Apple? Of all the places in the world to choose from, and even as you thought of America, what attracted you to New York in particular?
First, I wanted to have the largest apple in the world.
Oh, okay. That's a great reason. Did you find it?
Always. Yes.
So New York in the 1980s.
I'll tell you why, because, you know, there was this multiculturalism, if you will, growing up. And I wanted to come to a place in the United States where it's kind of cultural melting pot.
Absolutely.
You know, where you can meet with any musicians from any part of the world, whether living in New York or passing by New York. And so this was a very interesting place for me, considering that I come from a background where I carry with me this multicultural music as a performer and composer and in education. So I thought that New York was the right place for me. And also, I happened to have a brother who lived in New York.
Okay.
So this
your
was
family in
it
many
was
ways.
it was easier. And you know, I made my choices. I wanted to come to Manhattan School of Music, particularly. I thought that this was a fantastic school, who not only you know, carried the American musical repertoire, but they preserved the Western European repertoire at its best.
Sure.
And I came to study with a teacher, Bronstein,
Yes.
Raphael Bronstein. And when I studied with him, he was, what, 83, 84? And he hardly spoke to me. I mean, I will play and he will move his fingers up and down and will make sound. But definitely he was a great inspiration for me. And then finished Manhattan School of Music. Across the street was Columbia University. I was interested in their music education program,
Sure.
which a teacher's college and the musicology. And so I combined both together.
At that time.
Definitely.
So your time in New York, both at Manhattan as well as Columbia, was really sort of encapsulating the Western tradition and reinforcing those fundamentals of music and not so much referencing the world music aspect of your artistry. Is that right?
That's true, but at the same time, like it or not, it enhances my own musical experience and perception and my own tradition, if you will.
Sure.
And then, you know, I really wanted to play with musicians from around the world, do projects together, you know, record with, and this was really the great place for me. Absolutely. And I remember there was a place in New York called the World Music Institute, which is still there.
Yeah.
And Robert Browning, who founded this institute, introduced me to a concert. He produced a concert for me. And I remember first time playing there. It was at that time the Alternative Museum. Right? Very little place in Soho. And I played, maybe 20 people came. And the same institutions last year produced or sponsored the concert for us. a town hall, and it was like, you know, full capacity, 1,800 people.
Of course.
So it's interesting to see the growth and the impact between when I started and now,
Sure.
and how people, you know, learn more about music and open their eyes and get familiarize themselves with Arabic music. And wherever we go now, we have a good crowd, good followers.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we talked a little about Shimon Shaheen, the young man, Shimon Shaheen, coming to America and expanding his horizons that way, and reinforcing the Western musical fundamentals and integrating with your cultural heritage. Now, I'm fascinated with another side of you, which is the social entrepreneur as well, because besides being an artist, you also are known for founding things and starting things on your own.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll play a short video clip that I'd love for us to listen to, and then I'd love for you to react to it, because I think it shows another side of you. So, of course, what stands out to me the most is this visceral, jovial sense as I watch you interact with your students, with the young virtuosi, and as you then kind of caringly take a look and then go on with your own performance. And so what I would love for you to talk about is the vision, the mission behind founding the ensemble, working with these young virtuosi. Where do you see Kantara in 5-10 years? What is the dream with that? For the young people, but also beyond.
Right. I started Contra Group in mid-90s in New York. This is the professional.
The professional version of it.
Yeah, the big cats. And then when I joined Berklee, like 4 and something years ago, the first thing I wanted to do, besides teaching and the classes, I wanted to have an ensemble, and we called it Contra Berkeley.
And Contra in Arabic?
The arch.
The arch.
Yeah. Contra, the word in Arabic, and the arch is the word in English. So, and the purpose of the ensemble was to bring the whole idea of Berklee is opening up to world music.
Sure.
It's not anymore the pure American jazz school,
Sure.
as many people perceive
as it used to.
As used to,
have
yes,
the
yes.
reputation for.
There is representation of many musical styles and genres at Berklee from around the world. There are many teachers who comes from different parts of the world: Indian, Middle Eastern, Eastern European, African, South American, you name it. And we have 35% of the student population at Berklee is international.
That's incredible.
It's incredible, yes. And the rest is American and Canadian. So if
Wow.
we include the Canadian, it will be much more than 35.
So in the end, it's your dream of integrative kind of
So I
setting.
thought that, yeah, I mean, establishing Contra was this melting pot in which students come and audition to it, and then those who are accepted, they can play together, and they experience world music. So I hate to use the word world music, but music from different parts of the world.
Sure.
And they open up, if you will, and they enhance their understanding of the music from different parts of the world. And it's apparent also when they leave Berklee, their experiences and their projects, and it's beyond, you know, the just American jazz, which is fantastic,
Sure.
but the world is huge and vast.
Do you feel it opens up for the students something beyond just the musical genres? Do you feel it has a larger connotation where they're opening up and becoming curious about world cultures as well, and
Of course.
understanding that
Yes, yes.
bigger meaning?
The experience by itself is not only musical experience, but cultural experience. And, you know, we just came back. I was in Jordan, Amman, and in Palestine, the West Bank and Gaza. We went to audition students
Sure.
who wanted perhaps to come to Berklee. And we do an interview after each audition. And most of the students would say the same thing. We want to bring our culture integrated with the Berklee music scene and see what kind of marriage we get out of it, you know,
Sure.
which is fantastic.
incredible.
So they learn from so many cultures from around the world, and they bring their own to the table.
That's incredible. So in many ways, you see that there's that interest, that hunger really for that kind of knowledge and integration and demystification of different cultures, which you were able to do through your teaching. And music.
Absolutely, absolutely.
That's incredible. Now, you touched a little bit on the duality of violin and oud. And as a string instrumentalist, and so many of our young people today in the audience as well are, I think many of us are puzzled and fascinated at the same time with your duality between the oud and the violin. I wonder, how would you say the two intersect? How do you think the two instruments relate to one another, and how are they distinctly different for you?
They are two different species, if you will.
That's true.
I cannot
so?
find another word. But for some reason, it came to me naturally at the age of 3 and 4. You know, I just held the oud and started to play. By the way, the oud that you saw tonight, this little one, it is in display at the museum, the Arab Museum in Dearborn. And Anan Amiri was a factor in stealing the oud and
Thank you, Anna.
and having it there. And also, 4 weeks ago, I was touring in the Middle East and Greece and Italy, and we ended up playing blast concert in the city of Haifa, where I grew up most. And after the intermission, 2 gentlemen came up on the stage, and surprised, I say, why are they coming to the stage? We have to supposed to perform. And they brought a little box with them. I opened it, and it was my violin, which I played when I was 6 years old.
Oh.
Yes. Yeah, it's,
Yeah, we want that in Detroit. You know, we need that in Detroit, definitely. You should just bring that.
so I just played with the tuning keys, and I played something on it that sounded exactly how I used to play when I was 6. So the violin is a different instrument. I mean, the commonalities are the fact that they have open fingerboard, no frets, where you can play the microtonality, which is an essential component of Arab music.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Microtonality, those sounds between the white and the black key, neighboring white and black key on the piano.
Non-diatonic, non-European sounds.
Yes, yes. And, but the two instruments are different, but they are part of the traditional Arab ensemble, if you will.
Sure. So the violin, although a European instrument, inherently, while tuned differently, unless I'm wrong, does belong in the traditional Arabic ensemble. Is that right?
It is part. In the beginning of 19th century, there was a Syrian violinist who studied also Western classical violin, and he played the Arabic style violin. He was responsible for incorporating the Arabic style violin into the small ensemble in Egypt, actually. He moved to Egypt, and this is where. So when you had the zither and the oud and the end-blown, the nai, and the tambourine and a few other traditional instruments, the violin was incorporated, and it felt organic.
Absolutely.
It didn't
and its
disturb the sound.
Mm-hmm.
It was very much. Because we have also instruments that are the forerunners of the violin, if you will.
Sure.
Like that is exactly 2 or 3 strings with the bow, with the real bow, not the violin bow. Like the rabab, R-A-B-A-B. So this is a violin's kind of instrument.
That family.
So the Arabic ear is not that foreign to the sound of the violin.
Absolutely. Well, while we're not that foreign to the sound of the violin either, your oud playing was spectacular. Would you do us the honor of also sharing something on the violin?
Yeah, of course, of course. This is an Italian violin made by Galliano. I was playing in Riccione in Italy like 3 years ago. And I'm joking with the people, just talking to them, not that I knew. I'm telling him, you know, guys, I'm playing Italian violin. It was made by Galliano. And everybody was like, woo! Apparently, he was born there in Riccione.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
that's a happy coincidence.
And then I said to them, just to protect myself, but I'm going to play, you know, Arabic and some fusion, of course,
Sure.
but Arabic style. And I'm afraid that Galliano, if he listens to me, he will come back from the grave and will,
Or he might
will
really
destroy
enjoy
me
it.
in the violin. But it was a great experience. You know, you never know what to expect. So can I, it's
Absolutely.
okay if I stand up?
Yes.
So when I play on the violin, the Arabic style, I change the tuning. There are 2 strings that are changed. This is the Western tuning. And then the Arabic. So there, A goes down to G and the E to D.
To D.
To D. The reason is very complicated, but I will tell you, I'll give you 2 tips. One is to accommodate this microtonal system that we call the maqam, which is the modal system in Arabic music. And the second thing is to accommodate the use of ornamentation.
Sure.
Because when we play, we use the embellishments in our playing. It's called the...
Beautiful. Simply incredible. Thank you for that. Very, very beautiful. I can see, I think we hear some similarities in the language and yet such a difference in the sound. And still quite fascinating how you combine the two and that it comes naturally.